What is the haps, everyone? Common expression. Welcome back to another video book review. I, of course, am John Lee, and today I'm reviewing Anthony Bourdain's first book, Kitchen Confidential. So, full disclosure here, I had never watched an Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown episode. I'd never read his book. I kind of knew who he was because his first wife, Olivia, was a jiu-jitsu fighter, and so sometimes he would get interviewed on sites like Bloody Elbow and stuff like that, and I just kind of assumed he was like every other food chef TV guy, Bobby Flay and Emeril and all of those guys. But then he died, and the response on Twitter and social media was really interesting. If you know me, I get very annoyed a lot of the time when celebrities die because we tend to take all the bad things about them and let that go and just kind of lionize them. I first noticed it when Steve Jobs died. Like, let's cut the shit. Steve Jobs was a fucking asshole and a deadbeat dad, right? Just because you like your iPhone doesn't mean that we need to celebrate Steve Jobs' life at all. Like, the guy was a fucking prick. You know, no two ways around it. There was no reason for him to be a prick. He also might have allegedly stolen Steve Wozniak's tech in the 80s. There's just a lot of stuff to not like about Steve Jobs. Everyone was like, oh my god, we lost a genius. So I get very annoyed with that. And I thought we did it again with Michael Jackson. We continue to do it with a lot of people when they die. Nothing better for you PR-wise than dying. But with Bourdain, it was different because it wasn't the usual, like, oh my god, what a genius. It was things like, what a unique voice. It was things like, what a ally of people of color around the world and oppressed people. And people were really personally touched on it. And so it was a lot more than just kind of the fake virtue signaling that you usually see, which made me want to kind of see what I had been missing out on. So I picked up his book, Kitchen Confidential, and I totally get it. What a unique voice. Somehow he was able to be, number one, he was a great writer, right? He had a way with words. Like, his descriptions of food are amazing and beautiful, and he was able to pay respect to food and chefs and cultures without toadying and without kissing their ass and being obsequious and being one of those people who wanted to be an ally. Like, I think Anthony Bourdain would probably object to being called an ally, which is generally one of the signs that the person is a person with high social consciousness, because it's usually the people screaming about how they're an ally to women or people of color who are just virtue signaling. But he was able to go to these cultures, and I started watching Parts Unknown too, and I'm not a big food guy. I don't know how to cook. I don't really have any interest in cooking. I love McDonald's. I think that's pretty much the height of culinary deliciousness, and I'm not joking. But I think that being able to talk about food in a way that's not pretentious, which Anthony Bourdain was really good at, and being able to link it to the stories and the people. He was really good. Like, the one that really stands out to me of the Parts Unknown I watched, which was maybe like 8 or 9 episodes, was the one in the first season where he goes to Koreatown and they talk about the LA riots and he sees the families, and he really gets into the story behind the food in Koreatown and the story of the people, because I think that was kind of his real gift, was being able to link it to the people and make it humanizing and relatable in a way that I just don't see any other food chefs. I don't see a lot of people doing it. He had a unique voice. Like, I'm going to keep saying that because it's a unique ability to be like your cool Uncle Tony who smokes cigarettes and drinks beer, but also, you know, can whip up crazy hollandaise sauces and fancy food, right? The other thing I think that was interesting about Kitchen Confidential is he came from a privileged background, but he chose the pirate life, as he calls it, with the cooks and the galleys and these kind of crews of misfits and antisocial people like his sous chef Steven, right? The characters, you know, it was about the food, but it was really about the people with Anthony Bourdain, and I think that is what really spoke to a lot of people, and that's what made his book really remarkable. That's the only book I've ever read about food. I'm going to read the rest of his books now because, number one, he's an amazing author. He has a unique voice. It's very crude, but also really entertaining and also really informative, you know, and it's just every man. You don't ever feel like he's talking down to you. My problem with foodies, number one, is that who doesn't like food, right? Unless you're talking about like some hardcore bodybuilders or like professional athletes who literally look at food just as fuel, everyone likes fucking food, right? So get off your high horse. But you don't get any of that with Anthony Bourdain. You know, he's definitely a man of the people, and he chose the pirate life. He came from money and privilege and chose to work in these kind of down and out kitchens, which eventually led him to work up his way up the chain. But, you know, one of the things I think about Kitchen Confidential that's really interesting is how humble he is. He even includes a chapter on a 3-star chef. I can't remember his name. But he goes through all the ways that the 3-star chef is different and kind of better than him. And he specifically says, like, this is what he did that made him better. Like, how many other people, how many other chefs, how many other people who are at the top of their profession to the point where they can write a book? I'm a ghostwriter. I write books like this for people. No one has ever asked me to write a chapter about how someone else is better than them. It's always how they're the best, how everything they did was great, et cetera, et cetera. And in Anthony Bourdain's book, Kitchen Confidential, he has a whole chapter about how this other chef is better than him and the choices that he made that led him to be a better chef, which I think is just really remarkable and kind of sums up everything you needed to know about Anthony Bourdain. So, sad he died. I mean, who knows? Suicide is a difficult subject, but I totally get it now, and I highly recommend the book. 5 out of 5 stars. It's one of the better books I've read this year, and if you are at all interested in food or chefs or just want to hear a really unique voice from a great writer who has a really interesting and I think admirable perspective worth emulating, then I highly, highly recommend Kitchen Confidential. 5 out of 5 stars. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video, share it, all that fun stuff, and I will be back to talk to you very, very soon.